think we're live.
Sounds great.
All right, so we are here to talk about the Obelisk Gate, woohoo, by N.K. Jemisin, which is the second in the Broken Earth trilogy, and I'm excited about this. It's taken me a very long time to read it. Sorry, Liz.
It took me quite a while too. I will admit it's been a while since I've even thought about it, so I might be a bit rusty, but I do love this book and I love this series. So let's bring
Okay,
it.
good. I'm excited to talk about it. So I actually gave this like around a 4.25. Now I really liked it, but I didn't love it as much as the first one. And I don't know how to get back that thrill that I had for the first one because of that big twist. You know, the big twist. We already talked about that. That's the three, you know, we all know that everybody is basically the same person. All the narrators are basically the same person. And that was such a huge thing for me. It was so mind-boggling that this book was really cool because you actually get the twist of having a partial narrator in, what is the name of the guy, the little dude? He's not little, really, but the Stone Eater.
Oh gosh.
What is his name?
Well, thanks already.
Testing your remember skill.
Me. You know what? I'm just
Hoa.
Characterless name at this point.
His name is Hoa.
Hoa. No, I love having him as like a surprise narrator kind of at the end.
Yeah, so that was fun because he's interjecting a lot throughout the story. You know, you find out that it's him, but then he's kind of the one who's like, and you this and you that, and he's really talking to Nassin in a way, but not Nassin, Essen. And I really did enjoy that. So I enjoyed so much about this, but I couldn't get back that same like surprise factor as I had from the first book. And I think that's why because I was set up so high in the first book that this one was great. It was so good. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't quite what the first one was for me.
No, I agree. I always worry about a sequel in a trilogy where the second book kind of lets you down. The first book's amazing. The sequel kind of lets you down. And then the third book rises up again. Mm-hmm. And that's what I kind of attribute the Obelisk Gate to that. The first book, amazing. This one really builds up to what the third book is going to give us. Just, teasing it.
Yeah.
But it really is a building book, right? I mean, in the first book, it's truly about Essen, who she is, what this world is, the powers, and just setting up what this fifth season is going to be about, the ending of humanity per se. And then this book is truly just, hey, by the way, we get the daughter as a narrative. This is what she's been doing this whole time. This is what the Guardian has been doing. And this is kind of, we don't get the full story of the Guardians, but we kind of get this teaser of what's been happening with the Guardians and what they're about. And then also a continuation of Essen's life right now and her survival. So
yeah, you're right. And that's exactly what it is. And so it is definitely building you up for the third book. What did you like? So I was a little confused about, I still was a little confused about the role that the Guardians play, or so we know that now that, or at least this is my understanding. I was a little more, surprisingly, I was a little more confused in this book than I think I was in the first book. So we know that the battles are between the Earth and humanity, but then where exactly do the Stone Eaters fit? Are they partially on the Earth side, partially on humanity side? I couldn't really tell where their lines were because they're obviously not all for each other. They're all not, the Stone Eaters don't necessarily all agree with each other when it comes to this big battle or what have you. But I couldn't figure out whose loyalties they like where their loyalties lie.
This is why I love N.K. Jemisin, because just because you're part of one race, the Stone Eaters, they're not a monolith, and that's how she sets it up. They're separated into factions. Like some are with the moon, some are with people, and then there's a third part where like they just don't care. So
Yeah, I haven't figured out
there's
the third one yet.
3 of them. There's 3 factions of the Stone Eaters. Some are just like kill all humans. We're Stone Eaters now. Stone Eaters are going to be the people who live on Earth. The second one is like, no, we can keep humans around. They're fine. Let's bring back the moon, right? And I forget what the third one is, but I know there's 3 factions of them. So just because they're Stone Eaters, they don't all believe in one thing. And that's why I love N.K. Jemisin, because she brings that reality to her book.
Okay,
Does
that
that
makes
make
sense. It does make sense, because I was really, and then I also got kind of confused because Hoa appears to be, so basically Essen's Stone Eater appears to be on the side of trying to bring back the moon and save humanity. But when that gray Stone Eater approached Nassan, her daughter, he approached her with the goal to rescue the moon and save humanity. So like, I don't know what his obviously he has an ulterior motive, but we don't learn about that in this book. So I'm kind of like, it sounds like he's on the same side that Hoa is. So why is he causing so many problems? Why is he going against what Essen is trying to do? And, then of course, trying to get her daughter to be a part of this battle. And I feel like he's falsely representing what his motives are. He must be, right? Because Hoa is so against him.
I think so. I got from it that the gray Stone Eater is just, no matter what, trying to find someone to bring the moon back to placate the Earth. And I think we heard somewhere, and it might just be me inferring, that he wants all humanity to fail. But he does need someone to bring back the moon.
Okay. Because he's definitely interested in killing off all the origins.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's made that very clear.
And I think he's just, being that evil guy, being like, do this for me.
Yeah, because, wow. I mean, I guess let's talk about Nassan then, because the daughter, she has, there's so much going on there. So much going on there. It was a pretty cool exploration of her character this time around.
Oh, no. The relationship with the father, too. Oh my gosh, that poor girl. And then she basically gets Stockholm syndrome from that guardian. I forget his name. Shafa, thank you.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, it's like Shafa is also messed up in the head somehow, where he thinks he's doing a good thing and like puts all of his love on Nessa, but also thinks she's Isun. I'm always saying Isun. Esun.
I call her Essen, but yeah.
And it's just like, how bad can that get?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's times when she's like, oh, I understand where my mom's coming from. And she almost like, I kind of miss my mom. But then other times she's like, well, it's my mom's fault, though, because, you put blame on the only person you can really trust, even though she doesn't feel she can trust her mom. Her mom has always been there for her, even though she doesn't, she doesn't feel like she's been there for her in the way she wanted, because she wanted more of a nurturing upbringing, but her mom still was protecting her. And I think that Nassan knows that, but at the same time, she's so angry and she's so upset, and a lot of it has to do with her father, who is, he murdered her brother, like, it's a huge thing. It's a huge, horrible thing. And yet she's pressed it down so much that you're right. She's got Stockholm syndrome now with Shafa, because, and she just, and that whole thing where she was explaining how her mom broke her hand, and Shafa was like, oh yeah, that's terrible. People shouldn't do that. And I'm like, you asshole.
It's like, no, you did that to her mom and many other
Yeah.
girls and boys. But at the same time, too, it's like, I love the two narratives going at the same time because Essen is looking at it like, I did this horrible thing to my daughter, trying to protect her. And then you have Nessa looking at it like, my mom did this horrible thing to me. And they're learning at the same time, and they can't redeem each other or
Yeah.
redeem themselves. And it's like, yes, now let's meet and figure it out together. Because you two are obviously going to have a really bad conflict in the future.
I mean, they have to, right? I mean,
They
it's
have to.
inevitable. And what I found fascinating about this book, and I kept thinking about it, was, and I know that this was, I know that it wasn't like N.K. Jemisin was trying to do this flippantly, but the way she handled the murders, like the fact that Essen, the daughter, was just murdering people at that one, that Origin, the place down in the Arctic. She just murdered them,
The
murdered a whole bunch of
fulcrum,
people,
the arch
and
of
yeah, the fulcrum. Thank you. And even like with Nassin, Essen, the mother, she sometimes will, or she almost kills people, or she does kill people, and it just happens so like there's nothing to it, there's nothing to it. There's nothing holding them back, and it's so interesting to see how N.K. Jemison's handling these kind of murders and almost making them like it goes to show like that level of shock that both of these characters are doing these horrific things, but they've just been able to go, I just had to do it, and it's not a thing, and I know that they will probably have to deal with that at some point, but in this moment, with everything going on, they're not. It feels so like, yeah, he murdered people. It's such a weird, like, it makes me feel like, oh, that's so. It almost makes me feel like I can just blank out my feelings about that.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain that better.
No, they're desensitized in the book, and it makes us as readers be desensitized too. And it might be part of their situation that they're in at this point too, because they're at the end of the world, right? They're seeing so many people die in front of them, whether it's because of their powers or because of, I don't know, hunger or those beetles, the steam beetles.
Yeah.
But it's like, how else are they going to react to enable themselves to survive?
Agreed. And that is very.
But at the same time, Nessun's like, what, 10?
Yeah,
7?
she is. She's 10. She's very young. And the way that's why I think I keep going. But she's doing all these things, and you don't think of her as this bad person. I mean, I know she has very angry feelings, but she's not a bad person. But just the power. Sorry, there's a really loud car going by. But the power that these origins have, like I hate that they're hated on so much by the general population, but I can understand where that fear might have grown, considering how dangerous they can be. And when you're in a situation where Nassim, this young 10-year-old girl, is just killing people randomly, that is frightening. And I obviously think that everything's been handled incorrectly by people of the planet, but um, when you're 10 years old, you don't necessarily have the ability to have that same sense of like, I should not be doing this, as you do as you get older. That's what we learn as we get older, And so uh, it is kind of scary. It is kind of scary, that ability when you're young and can just like, oh, I'm gonna kill all these people because they piss me off, or because they hurt Shafa, or because
Yeah.
it's an interesting approach to the whole moral of death, I think, that N.K. Jemisin is putting forth. Like, what is the moralness of murder and death and stuff? And of course, we know that in this story, death is a pretty common thing because we've hit a 5th season, and much more death is going to happen, like you said, with those wonderful boil bugs.
Oh, the way that she described it too. It doesn't get better, no matter how many times you read that. It's like, oh, it's coming up. It's coming up. Oh, yep, there it is.
And then the war with like the mini war with the boil bugs, like that was incredible. Oh, so awesome and horrible at the same time.
It's like, yes, but like, no.
I cannot imagine. I cannot imagine. Okay, so I guess let's talk about Alistair, because Alabaster, not Alistair, Alabaster. And
Where's Alistair from? That's a name that
Alistair,
I know.
yeah,
That's a fictional character.
it is. And it's from probably something I read recently.
It's all good. It's all good.
Alabaster. Okay, fascinating turn of events. And exactly kind of, and actually kind of what I thought. So he basically turns into a stone eater in the end because he comes back at the very end and he's made of alabaster, which,
I love that actually.
I know. So is that how stone eaters are made?
It's implied. It's definitely implied in there. A really
Like,
strong origin is eaten and then made into a stone eater, which is interesting, right?
such an odd origin story. Like, how did that start?
It was Father Earth, you know.
Started
No
punching
idea.
at humans and turned one into a stone eater, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna start eating other origins." So, is that why they pair up with origins, the stone eaters? So, like,
I thought it was more because it might be, but thought it was more implied that it was the stone eaters that wanted to remember their human roots. Like, let's observe this human and find out like what it was like again.
that certainly seemed to be the case for Hoa. He really wants to be human, and he really wants to connect with that human side of himself. He has a lot more empathy and compassion than some of the other stone eaters do,
Which is
which is
also very
interesting.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Considering he's old, like he's one of the oldest stone eaters, at least that's implied too.
I thought he like that. I think it's the very last chapter with the doctor too. Like Hoa, again, I think it's implied. I might be reading this wrong, but he's in love with Essen, right?
Oh
But
yeah.
also apparently eating her.
Yeah. Well, I mean, is that an act of love? I don't know.
I'm going to consume all of you.
Well, and then you could be a stone eater partner for me, I guess. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Lurna,
Is
that's the doctor's name.
so like, does this mean that Alabaster and well, so
No, he says it
antimony,
outright. I love her, of course. He does say
yeah,
it
he
outright.
does. And I got that feeling very early on, and I just couldn't understand. For one, I guess we know how he chose her because she saved him basically from the red, from the garnet obelisk. And
Well, not only did she save him, she also asked about his well-being. And I think that's what really resonated with him.
do origins not normally ask about how people's well-beings or something? Because it's not like Essen's a really kind person.
She was not at that point in her life, that's for sure.
She's not warm and fuzzy.
But just the fact that she was curious at that point and being like, hey, you okay? How are you? That really resonated with him. And I don't know, maybe stone eaters are just not friendly people. They're clearly not friendly people.
I mean, is that a defense mechanism? Because they've had to be, they lived for so many years and they're pretty solitary.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I do think is interesting about them is that they're so stone eaters really don't they're not very like humans tend to get together in groups and stuff, right? We tend to have a group of common interests, and even if we go to war, we're with a group of people who agree with us, or at least we have a common enemy or have a common idea. Stone Eaters don't seem to have that. They're so solitary, and I know that some of them may agree on things, but they really don't work together that much, which I find strange.
You're right. But at the same time, Alabaster was talking about that city on the other side of the world where they congregate.
Congregate, but I don't know. It
Congregate,
doesn't,
but not work together. You're right.
which just seems so strange. If they were originally human, like I feel like that's an element of human nature to, we're
But
social
can we
creatures, right?
say Stone Eaters are human?
I mean, ask Hoa; he'll tell you he's human.
Point.
you know, uh, yeah, I don't know at this point. It's really hard to say.
It's just another race to explore in the next book, right?
Yes, yes, I'm really excited about that. It's they're just so surprising to me, and I find it fascinating that everybody's so disgusted by Stone Eaters. Just even like just the way they behave. It's that whole the uncanny valley thing. Have you heard of that, the uncanny valley thing?
It sounds familiar, but I'm not aware
So
of what it
it's
means.
basically the way that humans feel about like androids, why we're so freaked out and disgusted by them. It's something that's so close to being human and yet not the same,
Mhm.
that it's eerie and uncanny, and you're like, ugh, I don't like that. That's how people feel about androids. And I feel like it's kind of similar to Stone Eaters, but Stone Eaters don't look like humans and they don't
No, they do
act
not.
like humans. So it just seems odd to me that everybody's so disgusted by them. Like,
More so than Origins, too,
mm-hmm. I guess
which
because they're
is
less
interesting.
human.
Yeah. Because at least Origins have the appearance, or they can pass as humans. Because Origins are humans.
Right. Well, yeah, they are.
Let's just be clear on that one.
Well, I'm telling you, Stone Eaters are humans too.
Oh,
Stone Eater human rights. Stone Eater human rights.
thank you, Amy.
No, I'm just kidding. It is very unclear to me. But they were originally at one point humans. They're like the vampires of the stone world, is what they are.
I love it. Thank you, Amy. Yes, I've never looked at it that way. They are. They survive. Well, they don't survive, but they like human entities,
They eat
and they
humans.
turn humans into themselves, their own things.
Yeah, and
they live forever. Perfect analogy. I love it.
I never thought of it. Okay, this book's 5 stars now.
5 stars. We can end it right here. We're done. We don't even need to
My
read the third
brain
one.
just completely exploded. It was fantastic. Wow. Okay. Yeah. They're like, oh, wow. Yeah. Especially like the whole consumption thing. Like to turn another person into a stone eater, you have to consume them in some way. Just like sucking the blood and tearing,
It's beautiful.
Incredible. Incredible. Great job, N.K. Jemisin. She just slipped that in there, didn't she?
Makes sense. Makes sense. It is a sci-fi book. You have to have a vampire in a sci-fi book.
You gotta have vampires. In a sci-fi especially, yeah. Oh, goodness.
Oh, this is where I'm at. Okay.
The Guardians. I still don't understand the Guardians.
Yes. No, I agree. I mean, this is the first time too in this book where we realize Guardians are like ageless, right? They just don't age. They don't know. Then they themselves don't even know how old they are. They just know they get that little chip, and they malfunction, and then they have to take care of themselves if they malfunction.
Right. So, was the chip anything like that little piece of metal that went into was that the same? So was that chip what they would have used? Okay, sorry. So the chip that's in Shafa, when When Tonki had the piece of metal that she pulled out of that room in the geode, and she grabbed it, and then it went in her body and was working its way up to her Cespene, even though she
I
doesn't have
forgot about
Cespene.
that.
Yes.
Thanks.
It's like it's going up the arteries and stuff. Is that the same thing that they would have used to create a guardian? Because that thing was trying to get to her Cespene. She doesn't have Cespene, but it was trying to get there.
I imagine maybe, because we don't know how old the Guardians are, and we also didn't know how old that geode, or that, at least that technology in that geode was. So they might be derived from the same thing, but we just don't know at this point. But that's a good theory. I like that. Let's just assume so.
Okay, and then I also was wondering if who are supposed to be the Guardians are left to their own devices, like they don't get that chip. Are they Origins? Are they going to be Origins?
We found out they're descended from Origins, and they're the people who don't have powers, right?
Oh, okay. Okay. So they're like stills from the Lunar Chronicles. Sorry, it's what I'm reading right now. So
bad. Yes, they are.
Associations. Okay, so they're basically like Origins, but because they have Cespene, they obviously have to have Cespene, or else there'd be nothing for that little chip to go into. Okay.
Yeah. No, they're the stills of Origins.
So is the Earth creating? Did the Earth create these Guardians? That's what I'm assuming. And the reason I'm assuming that is because remember that city that has the Stone Eaters in it? There's that tunnel that goes all the way through, and she's like, "There's got to be places where people live in there." And then Shafa, in some of his dreams, seemed to remember that setting. I felt.
No, I think I agree with you. I think at some point the Earth decided, because the Earth hates Origins, point blank. Like, they are his worst enemy, nightmare, bleh.
Okay.
So at some point, maybe it was the Earth's defenders, the Earth himself, created something to contain Origins, and that is the Guardians. The result is the Guardians. So somehow in the origin, we have Guardians, and they can police themselves and Origins, which is a very interesting dynamic in a dystopian-esque setting that we have here.
Yeah, it's very unique. It's interesting that they have created this system. Well, and that they've done it in a way that Origins believe it's for the best in a sense, because the Origins are still led by Origins, but they've been almost brainwashed into thinking that this is the best thing because of the Guardians, right? So,
but the Guardians supposedly protect them and everyone else from the Origins.
Right.
So no, you're right. It's very weird. And I think it's even weirder that new, like, Fulcrum-esque school that Shafa has created, where he clearly needs to be taken care of because his chip is malfunctioning. And he has those two other Guardians, and they're not taking care of him. But he still, like, relies on them, and he allows them to be there. I thought that whole dynamic was really interesting, too.
Yeah. And that's where I'm getting confused. And the reason I'm getting confused is because if this is the Earth's creation, if Guardians are the Earth's creation, their desire is to kill all the Origins anyways. When the chip goes bad, your desire is to kill all the Origins. Why would there be a setting of the Guardians before the chip goes bad that wants to control the Origins if the Earth's plan was to kill all the Origins? So that's what makes me think that maybe the Earth didn't create these Guardians. But if that chip came, like, if it wants to revert back to what the Earth is thinking, then I don't get it.
So that's where it makes me think it was humans then, because they want to control the Origins, because in a sense the Origins can help people survive a season.
Hmm.
Even though that actually, no, this theory doesn't make sense because the Origins are supposed to all kill themselves during a
Right.
season. So never mind, that's ridiculous.
Well, the Origins are supposed to keep their task when there's not a season is to keep the Earth from falling apart. Like they quell all the earthquakes, they quell all the big trembles and stuff like that. Anything that they can actually control, they control. So the humans would benefit from them as long as they're controlling the Earth from falling apart, from having another season.
Mm-hmm.
But then where did those chips come from? If they go back to the mind of the Earth, like why would you put a chip like that in a guardian if it has the potential of killing off all the Origins?
Because even though it has a potential, the Guardians are controlling each other and
Mm,
nicking the Guardian that does that.
right,
Because remember, when it malfunctions, that's the Earth speaking to that Guardian and being like,
right,
let's kill them all.
right. And that doesn't benefit the humans because they do need Origins to survive, even if they don't like them. What do the Guardians get out of killing? What do the Guardians get out of all this? Like,
I
where's
would
their
assume
motivation?
absolutely nothing. Because they're probably just as controlled then in this situation as the Origins, right?
I would think so. Yeah, by each other in a sense, which is
Yeah.
fascinating. Fascinating that the Origins are holding a place of power, but they're not actually holding a place of power. They're being controlled by these guardians that are
Mm-hmm.
have this place of power that's controlled by just the fact that they control each other. Like it doesn't there's no actual benefit here, it seems.
So then the leadership, the people who are in leadership, because Tonki knew something about this. And that's why she had that that chip thing crawl into her because she was playing around with that. And she's
Yeah.
originally from the leadership, right? That's her background.
Yes.
The leadership knows everything. They're the ones
And
in
I don't
power.
know anything about the leadership. So maybe that's something that we need to know more about because I still don't understand who wins in this. When it comes to the Guardians, who wins in the Guardian situation? Because the Guardians don't seem to be getting much, in my opinion. I feel like they're a pawn, but who is actually controlling them? Because they have so much power themselves.
Well, and ultimately, it all goes back to when the moon was flown away. Like, why? What was the point of that?
Yeah, I know. I can't even guess, to be honest. Why would you want to get rid of the moon? What do you have against the Earth that you want to separate the Earth and the moon? Like, was that intentionally done to get back at the Earth, or was it done for whatever else reason?
It was the Stone Eaters.
But were the Stone Eaters around before the moon left? Because I feel like the Stone Eaters were a result of all this stuff happening on the Earth.
It's the obelisks.
But were the obelisks created because because the moon went away? I don't know. And I don't understand the Obelisk Gate. I still don't really understand that. Like, who created it? You have to have some pretty good.
Humans created it, right? They dug down deep into the earth, and that's where the obelisks are created in the earth. You throw a again, maybe I'm going crazy. I thought you threw a stone eater in there and you just threw it in. And it's created in those deep holes, right?
I mean, that's the sockets. That's what I thought, but it still hasn't ever been. It's never been made clear. And if it has, then like I said, there were a few things in this that I was still a little confused by. So it might be a good book to reread at some point soon or I don't know, but I felt like what exactly happened there? I was a bit confused, and there wasn't a lot of clarification in this book when it came to things. Like the first book, I felt like clarified the things I was confused of pretty much in that book, except for the things we don't know. But this one, some of the things they do explain to you, I felt like needed more clarification. But I wonder if they're waiting till the next book to do that.
From what I remember, and it's been years since I read the third one, and I'll be completely honest, I forget a lot of what happens in the third one. It does clarify, but like I said when we were doing our first show, the first one you theoretically could read it as a standalone. I mean, there's so much more in this
Yeah.
book than it
Yeah.
just like it's a trilogy for a reason, but you can't read the second one without the third one. Like
Okay.
you just need to
Oh,
continue, right?
okay. That makes
You
sense
just
then.
right.
Okay. And I will say that I accidentally peeped your star rating for the third book, and I'm like, oh no,
Yeah.
no, no.
Like I
Like,
said, it's been years and so much has happened in my brain that I don't remember a lot what happened. So it might completely change. I don't know.
okay, I'm excited to find out, and it'll be an interesting conversation because I'm like, oh no, because a lot of the other reviews I saw were pretty high for the last book, and so I'm like, oh, am I gonna hate it too, or am I gonna feel the opposite of Liz, and we're gonna have a big argument and fight on discussion? No, I'm just kidding. We
No,
wouldn't.
what happened there too, I think I was reading these books when I was doing my teaching certification. Yeah, my teaching certification. So I was like swamped, but I wanted to continue reading it. So that last one, I was really rushing as
Okay,
well.
and that can really change the feelings of a book. I've had problems with that too.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'll be interested to hear how you feel about the third one because I'm like, oh wow. But this one was a little slow going for me starting out with. So I did struggle a little to get into this one, whereas I didn't, even though the first book was a little confusing at the beginning, it takes you a little time to kind of understand what's going on. I didn't feel like it was slow moving at all. Whereas this one, the beginning, it took me a while. And I don't know if that was my own where I'm at in life and stuff, or if it just was a little slower for me. Um, that's kind of how I felt about the beginning of this book.
No, I agree because a lot of the action in this book is like the last one third, I would say,
Mhm.
because
But
you're introduced to Nessun.
yeah,
Nessun.
she's a big part of the.
But a lot of that is like, okay, we already kind of know this. Okay, where she's been. Okay, what's happening here? And then, of course, you're reeling from the big surprise at the end of the first book, and then
Mhm.
it's a lot of politics in that little enclave town thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I agree.
and you're also building up this little geode world and Essence new life there, and I'm fascinated, but not world, it's the geode. I'm fascinated by it though. I'm really curious about that, and we're deciding. I'm thinking that this was a place where they either made, well, if we're going with that whole like little piece that goes into Tonki's arm and goes up, tries to go up to her, then I'm thinking this is where they created Guardians. One of the places
Mhm.
where they created Guardians, because it doesn't seem like they would be creating any actual obelisks here, except, they were able to make small ones based off all that stuff, but it's not like a big obelisk place. But you do have all those little things that they could use to make Guardians. So like what was the original intention of these geodes or this geode or like
Yeah.
which I think is fascinating. It's interesting. I want to know more about it, but I don't know if we're going to get to know more about it because they kind of leave it or they're going to be leaving it.
No, I think we are going to be leaving it, and we just
She's like, I can't tell you anything.
never mind. Hello. Hey, how's the weather over there?
It's actually really nice today.
Oh, that's nice.
But so what's interesting though is that they're going to go try and take over this town that all those people were from that they boiled with all those boil bugs. Whew, crazy.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
but this town is still near where the big rift is, so it just doesn't seem like a smart place to go put your community.
Yeah, but you have to remember they're a community full of origins. So this
Right.
is my mentality when I think about it for them. They're a community full of origins, so they can quell any quakes or residue quakes. And honestly, it's a town full of food and they need food. So it's like the best of worst situations.
Let's avoid that cannibalism as much as we possibly can.
I mean,
Although
when
I
you
know
need
Liz
it,
is
you
really
need
into
it.
cannibalism, so
You need it, you need it. So,
no judgment here. No judgment here.
I mean, there is a season full of teeth, and that is all about cannibalism. If you've read it, it's kind of interesting.
It's a matter of necessity, honestly.
Yeah, season of teeth, right there.
So I know what you've been reading lately, Liz. Cannibalism books.
They're very relaxing if you haven't read it.
Have you read Tender is the Flesh?
I have not. Is it a great book? Is it about cannibalism?
It's about cannibalism. It's about normalizing cannibalism. Like it's in a world where cannibalism has become normalized. So I think you should read it and then tell me how you feel about it.
I'm looking this up right now.
It sounds fascinating. I'm gonna pile all my cannibalism books together for you, Liz, so that I
That actually looks phenomenal. I'm okay. I
think it sounds
sound
fascinating.
so awful when I talk about cannibalism. I promise I am a normal person.
I mean, she says so, but
Thanks, Amy.
no, I think you're wonderful.
That's how I get
Cannibalism or
through the
not.
day.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is a very interesting subject matter. And I do want to read that nonfiction book you read. So,
It's
fascinated by
it's
cannibalism.
really good.
Yeah. But Tender is the Flesh sounds really interesting, and I'd be intrigued to hear how you think about that one, because I think I want to check that out at some point, but I'm in no rush. But
It looks great. Thank you.
yeah, so they do need a place where they can find food, and I understand that. So it makes sense that they're going there. What do you think about all the characters in that community?
They're interesting, right? I think they're doing the best that they can in this situation. And I love N.K. Jemisin as a writer, but I almost wish she had gone even more into like previous prejudice and previous stereotypes when creating this society, because we get a little bit of it near the end when they were demanding their origins, the other town was demanding this town's origins, and then of course some killing and all that. But you never, well, not never, but you didn't really see other people's discontent with all of the origins in this town, and I feel like there would have been a lot more considering the last book. And it might have just been because we're learning from the perspective, not learning, but we're seeing this town through the perspective of Ensign. Sorry. I'm horrible.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
And so she might have not seen it, and other origins might have, because we're really limited in our narrator. Because she's a really powerful origin. I don't know about you, but I don't think many people would have been like, I'm unhappy with you, when, you know, this origin could have killed them.
Oh yeah, she's scary. She's scary even for the other origins are scared of her because she's got so much power. Although that other one, the one that's the leader of there, has a lot of very interesting power, because she actually looks at origin. She's looking at it the way she's supposed to, as like magic.
As opposed to the Fulcrum trained.
Right. Which is looking at it more like elements, like using it as an element, as opposed to using it as magic, which I think is fascinating, because that's what Nassen's learning from Shafa. Well, she's learning it on her own, which it tells me that she's really powerful, that little girl.
Yeah. And now Ensign. One day. But she's starting to like retrain herself with magic. So it's going to be curious to see how that goes, I guess.
Yeah. So it's going to be the battle of the mother and the daughter. Who's the more powerful origin? Oh, I just figured it out.
That weather though.
It's getting a little grayer outside right now. Not quite, the sun's peeking behind the clouds. Well, it'll be interesting because I agree, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to detract. I mean to sideline, but I agree, and it would have been kind of nice to know more of the history of those that prejudice as well, just to kind of see why it was formed that way, like why humans hate origins so much, almost like a prequel story to that whole relationship would have been interesting.
I would have loved a prequel to this book, but I know Jemisin probably has so many other book ideas that are phenomenal. So why would she go back to a book series that was already very successful when she is already phenomenal and amazing?
Did you read other of her books yet?
I've read The City We Became,
Right.
which is her new series, and I'm excited for the next book. Have you read it yet?
No, but I have it, and I do want to read it at some point. Yeah, I really want to read that one, and it sounds like it'd be a topic that's interesting to me, anyways. So, I love New York, and I would love to I like the concept of it. It sounds fascinating, but I've never read her. She has one other series which didn't get as well received. It wasn't bad. It was just not as well received. You haven't read that yet.
Well, she has a couple of, like, she has that duology, and I have that huge thick book, The Great Cities, the Dream Blood duology, and the Inheritance trilogy.
The Inheritance trilogy, that's the one I'm thinking of.
Okay. I haven't read those yet. I want to. And I think my next one, though, is the Dream Blood duology. Because I have... No. What do I have? No, I have the Inheritance trilogy. And it's like a book this thick.
Not intimidating at all.
Oh, no. That's why it's been on my shelf for like 3 years.
Because it's not intimidating at all.
Well, I think if I bought each book individually, it'd be fine. But it's just...
Yeah, because they're normal size books. Yeah, I'm not great at series. I love series, but I'm not great at continuing series. So who knows when I'll ever get to, who knows when I'll finish The Stone Sky.
You take your time, because I will too.
It's been a struggle lately, getting books. I'm reading a couple of really big books right now, and so I'm like in that, like, I don't want to say I'm slumpy, but it gets to that point where it feels like I'm not moving forward at all.
You know what I did last month, which was amazing? I ended up reading, what's that Ruby Dixon series that's been really all over Book Talk?
I saw that on your Goodreads.
The Ice Barbarian series. Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
So it's definitely erotic romance, but it was phenomenal. It was like 22 books within 2 weeks, and it was...
Oh my gosh.
But the books are really small. They're only like 180 pages per book. And you get through them fast.
Yeah.
It's great. So
how fun.
You don't have to read erotic romance, but I suggest finding a series with like really tiny books and just get through them.
Just having a nice little binge. Yeah. Next month I'm planning on doing middle grades. So I'm hoping that'll help too, because I just need some small things that are just fun. Just some small fun books.
Stuff you don't really have to think about either. That really helped me last month, where I could just come home and like blah.
Yeah, I get that, because I've just been feeling, and I've kind of slowed down on the buddy reads, because I love buddy reads. They're one of my favorite things to do, but at the same time, like, I was getting to like 5 or 6 buddy reads, and then I was just failing on all of them.
You're not failing. You're never failing. You're just progressing.
Thanks, Liz. Just progressing slowly.
But you're progressing.
I need this positive. This is great. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, Liz.
It's how I have to talk to myself right now, too.
You need a lot more of that. Yeah. But ultimately, though, it was really great, and I am looking forward to reading the next one. I am a little nervous because of your review, but
It was years ago. I'm thinking I'm gonna like it a lot more doing it this way this time.
because you won't feel as rushed and
I will have something to look forward to after I finish it too.
yeah. Oh, thank you. That's so sweet. It was a lot of fun. Is there anything else that we didn't talk? I felt like we did a good job. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about with this that we didn't really discuss?
I want to leave out the horror this time. And
The horror?
not the descriptive horror.
Oh, in the third book, you mean? You'd rather not have.
No, in this guy.
Oh yeah, it was pretty graphic, wasn't it?
We're good. We're good. We don't have to talk about it.
But actually, I'm just curious though. Did that really freak you out when you were reading it?
I'm finding it is in like fantasy books when I'm not expecting it. It freaks
Okay.
me out more than in like a horror book where I'm like I open it knowing I'm gonna get a Karen Slaughter type descriptive series.
Yeah,
That
that's what I was wondering about because you read those kind of books.
I read it all the time, but in something where I'm like, it's fantasy. Yeah, it's maybe a dark fantasy, but they're not going to be very descriptive of the slaughter.
Yeah,
And then it is. And I'm
they
like,
are. They were. Oh man, that scene. I mean, it was pretty awesome though. It was pretty awesome.
no, it was great. Yes.
But shocking.
But no.
And I am interested in the whole concept of the obelisks. So we're learning more about the obelisks and how to use them, and that they are very dangerous. But if you use them the correct way, if you use them more from the magic perspective, then you're more likely to be safe. But obviously that's going to become even a bigger factor in the next book. So I'm fascinated by this gate concept because I still don't quite understand it. So I still don't quite understand it. Like how it's supposed to come together and what exactly it's gonna. Yeah, I know you can't say anything, but that's me. Like that's where some of this book, like you said, the first book you could kind of read as a standalone because there's enough resolution that you're like, okay, I would like to know more, but I get what's going on. But this book, you still have so many questions at the end of it, and not everything is that clear. And so I can see that it'll help segue into the next book.
They're phenomenal books, though.
Huh.
I mean, there is a reason it got the Hugo Award, too.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. And I'll actually finish a series when I finish this. That's incredible.
No, Amy!
I haven't even counted how many series I haven't finished yet.
Don't do it. You're fine.
Yeah, I'm not.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Who cares? Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Liz.
Thank you.
Oh, my dog's starting up. And I am looking forward to our buddy read for the next one whenever that happens.
Again, take your time. You're fine.
But I am excited about it. I'm really excited about it.
Me too. Me too. But there's no rush.
And I've missed you, so thank you so much for being on here with me.
No, thank you too. This might be the kick in the butt I need to start making videos again.
Well, we love you and we miss you. So, but take your time because I know life. I understand. I completely understand. Yeah.
No, thank you. And
thank you.
You are amazing too.
Oh, shucks. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah. So I think that's it for this video. Awkward.
No, it was great. Thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you. All right. Bye, guys.